Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I have a flip video for you. I am going to be flipping the Spellbinders September 2024 club kits, and as per usual for my flip videos, I'll be making at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. I am featuring in this video the clear stamp and die of the month, the glimmer of the month, the small die club, the large die club, the 3D embossing folder of the month, and the stencil of the month. I do also get the Better Press Club and the Wax Seal Club, but at the time of this recording, I don't actually have those products in hand, so look for inspiration videos for those to come after. And as well, because this is a flip video and I do like to show the process from beginning to end for all of these cards, it does tend to be on the long side. So if you don't have the time to watch everything, just hover over the timeline and I'll have everything timestamped so you can jump straight to the card you're most interested in seeing me make. Now, without further ado, let's make these. Okay, so let's start off with the flat card. I am going to do some coloring and you're going to see some really speedy hands move because I color really slowly. But I wanted to leave the coloring and just so that you can see the card evolve. I feel like for a flat card, which I define not as strictly just the card base, but rather one layer on top of your card base and just flat embellishments, if any at all. And the reason why I'm actually coloring this onto a panel as opposed to directly onto my card base, which is an option to do if you'd like, but I'm doing it this way because I sometimes can be a little bit heavy-handed with my alcohol marker coloring, and if you color very with a lot of layers and you're heavy-handed with your coloring as well, you might see some bleed through of the alcohol ink through to the backside of your whatever you're coloring onto. Kind of just depends on how heavyweight your cardstock is. So I was worried that if I stamped and colored this directly onto my card base, that there might be some bleed through to the back and it wouldn't look quite as nice when you open the card. But for sure, this is one of those cards where maybe if you chose a different coloring medium, you could do this directly onto your card base and it would truly be a single layer card. But the motivation behind including a flat card in my flip videos is to have easy mailers because especially for the holiday season, I feel like a lot of times I actually end up spending quite a lot in postage because I find that at the end of the day when I mail something out, it'll either go over that 1 ounce limit for a standard stamp, or sometimes it feels like it's a little too chunky, a little bit too thick, and it might not be exceeding that 1/4 inch that we're allowed for a single stamp, but it's kind of coming close. So I'd rather just add the extra postage so I don't run the risk of it coming back to me for insufficient postage. And that can all add up, especially during the holidays. So sometimes it's really nice to have flat cards so that you know it's going to be an easy mailer. It will for sure send for just a single stamp, and that's why I like to have this type of card in my stash at all times. I'm not the best colorist, but I have been learning more from my friend Meg. Together we do coloring with Meg classes and it's been a real treat. We've only done a few of them so far, but I've always learned a tip or two that I've really kind of taken into my coloring and how I think about coloring. And for me, just these small incremental changes I feel like have really benefited, and they're starting to show in my coloring. And so Meg always teaches us a lot of things in each of those classes, but I try to only take, maybe one or two things that I can really make stick and then apply them so that they become more second nature. And one of the things that really stuck with me in the very first class I did with Meg was looking at the stamped illustrations to get some hints, get some clues as to where to put your shadows, because there'll be some extra lines drawn into the image that will give you a clue where maybe you want to go a little bit darker in your coloring. So that's one of the things that has meant that I look at all the stamped images differently now, because now I'm always looking for those little clues, those little hints, and I feel like that's really been a good takeaway from like day one of the coloring with Meg class. Now I am gonna cheat a little bit when it comes to actually coloring in the background, and I'm gonna cheat in two ways. Firstly, I'm not going to use alcohol markers because I feel like the pastels that I've pulled out, these happen to be pan pastels. I really love them. They're very, very pigmented. They're just buttery smooth also to apply. I'm just using one of these like little, I mean, these are special for doing this sort of technique, but you could use like an eye makeup applicator. It's basically the same thing. And you can see how pigmented it is. I just mixed up a little bit onto my palette here of red and green to create a little bit of a brown, some a really nice sort of earth tone just to ground this image. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a sky background, but I'm not gonna try to fill this whole panel. I'm just gonna do maybe just a little bit of like a almost like vignetting or like a halo effect almost, I guess is more the better word for it. And that way it just feels like it's not just floating on the page, but then I don't have to like color the whole panel. I feel like when you're focusing on a piece that is like a large image like this one from the clear stamp of the month, that's the star. So don't feel like I want to add too much more to this, and I just want enough to really let this image be the thing that really stands out and that sings on this card. So I'm not even going to add like a matte layer or anything. I'm just going to be comfortable with all of that white space in the upper right corner. And I thought about maybe trimming this down so that there was the white of the card base showing. I should have done that in advance, like trim that panel first. But I already have a nice little border with my pastels, so I didn't want to trim that off. I like that sort of organic edge where it's not colored all the way to the edge. And I'm gonna stamp my sentiment right into this panel, which at this point, especially since it takes me so long to color, I mean, really, that took probably like 2 hours for me to color. I definitely wanted to use a stamp positioning tool because there's no mess ups at that point. And I'll show a close up of all of my cards at the very end. But let's move on to my layered card. Now, as you saw in the preview at the very beginning, I actually make three, but they're all the same layout. So kind of just really the one layered card in terms of inspiration. But what I thought would be fun was to do this same layout but in three different colorways to showcase how well the well, I guess it's not super new anymore, but it's the treasured cardstock collection that Spellbinders has in gold, silver, and rose gold. And they actually have matching coordinating glimmer hot foils that coordinate beautifully with them. And when I saw the glimmer of the month, I thought, wow, that thanks is so fancy. I feel like it would be really nice to make like a super special set of thank you cards to maybe make as a gift set to give away during the holidays. And the script, the brush lettering on the word thanks, it just feels so sophisticated, a little classy, and so I really wanted to use some specialty card. And guess what? I want these to be so special. I didn't even gut out the centers of the papers just to save them because I want everything to be really seamless, and I don't want any of it to show exit because some of it I wasn't sure how much I would lift on some foam and how much I would glue down directly, and so I've just used the panels fully. But if you want to save some of the specialty cardstock and make it stretch a little bit, I would definitely recommend cutting out a little portion from the center because it's going to get covered anyways. And so you can save a little bit. I just wasn't sure, how many mats and layers I would add and how much I would really save because I want a good border all the way around of some of or really each layer so that you can really appreciate all the different textures. If you're not familiar with the Treasured collection, it's a pack of specialty cardstock. You get 15 sheets in total, and in each of these three different colorways, you're gonna get 3 sheets in 5 different finishes. So in the gold, in the silver, and rose gold, you're gonna have 15 sheets in each of those packs. They're sold individually. Each colorway is sold individually. The 5 different finishes are you get like a very high gloss mirror cardstock. You get a satin metallic, a brush metallic, glitter, and a pearlescent finish. So you get a lot, and you get 3 in each of those 5 different finishes. So what I've done as a um like a little template for my layout here is I've taken one of the metallics. So in the case of the rose gold, I used the really high gloss one. That's got a lot of reflective shine to it. And in the case of, I think the gold one is the satin, and on the silver card, that one's satin too. The satin and the brush metallic, they're pretty close in finish, but with the brush metallic, you kind of have those, that really subtle line, which is really lovely. And then on top of the metallic, I've got some glitter cardstock. Now, here's one thing. Okay, so with the rose gold, I kind of found that you can see me bringing on some different options. I felt like the glitter in the rose gold, it wasn't like a super good match to the high gloss rose gold that I started my card with. And the pearlescent wasn't a super good match either. That felt very pink and not super rose gold in the same sort of colorway as the mirror cardstock is. So what I decided to do instead of using a rose gold from that treasured collection, I took some black glitter cardstock, which is also by Spellbinders, and I used that instead. So my rose gold one's gonna look a little bit different to the other two, but I'm not mad about it. I like how it turned out because it's still another nice bit of texture and different visual interests to break things up a little bit. And that's what I was really going for was because each of these finishes, it might be in the same colorway, but you can see that there's some contrast between like a glitter gold versus a metallic gold. That glitter gold looks a little bit darker of a finish than the metallic gold that it's sitting on top of. But you can see that the glimmer foil is a really good match to that satin finish. And so I love how well everything, I mean, they Spellbinders did a great job of, really color matching these so that they can be used in combination with each other in this way. And it's just really great to be able to create these sets. I'm going to go back and probably make maybe 2 or 3 more so that I can have this be a set of either 5 or 6. I might double up on the gold and silver and let the rose gold be like the special one for a set of 5, or I just might double up all of them and make it a set of 6. But I really feel like these are super fun. With the glimmer of the month, the big thanks does have a coordinating die, and then you get additional glimmered sentiment plates, but those don't have dies to go with them. But it's really nice because you can kind of add them to the thanks sentiment. So I've used this card is full of thanks. Thanks for having a big heart, and all I can say is thanks. But besides those, there's also thanks for being a friend, and there's also thanks for lending a hand. So in total, you're going to have 6 glimmer plates, the word thanks plus 5 different options that you can pair with it if you wanted. And then you get the coordinating die for the word thanks. So really, really cool. Lots of fun. The glimmer of the month on that one. Okay, so now with my interactive card, I'm going to start off by doing some stenciling. The stencil of the month is a set of 5 stencils, and they aren't layered in the sense that you stencil, one layer and then you stencil, another layer on top, and then at the end, you'll have a complete image once you've used all 5 stencils. It's more that you have 4 individual stencils and then a second layer on top of it. And what I mean is that each of the 4 stencils that I'm going to stencil through first, they don't overlap with one another. They actually are a different design and a different area in terms of placement on your A2 card. And together, if you stencil them the way that they've been designed, you'll create this really cool background where it's a nice sort of random um, orientation of these differently shaped and sized pumpkins. None of them overlapping. So basically, you can kind of create your own background panel. And then the 5th stencil, once you're done with those initial 4, the 5th stencil is all of the stems that go on top of each of these pumpkins. So what I've done is I chose 4 different, I just happen to be using Versa Magic ink. It's a really nice sort of chalky ink that blends really smoothly. And I picked 2 in a yellow orange, and then I picked 2 in this sort of a denim blue, like a light and a dark. And what's really great about this is that because each of these are individual, you don't necessarily always have to use them in this format. You could just use the one stencil and just tile it randomly if you wanted. Just keep moving it around your panel and fill up your panel just with the one design if you wanted. But if you're going to use it the way that it was designed, your clue for positioning is look at the pumpkins that are at the edge of your stencil design and line those up with the edge of your panel. Because as you can see, every single layer that I stenciled, every single different color that's on there right now, it runs off of, there's portions of it that run off the edge of the A2 panel. So if you're looking for those as indicators for how to align your panel, then you're going to be sure to have these all line up. And there's a lot of wiggle room because you can see there's a generous amount of, white space around each pumpkin. So if you don't get it perfect, that's fine. They're not going to overlap with each other. Um as long as you're just, like a smidge off, that's totally okay. But that's sort of a hint or a clue for how to get this to line up so that it creates the pattern that was designed. And then this fifth and final stencil just has all of the little stem tops to each of the pumpkins. So really fast, fun way to create a background. Um, and I love it. I think it's fun to make backgrounds like these, and I like the stencils you can kind of use standalone too, and just pick and choose one or two, or any combination of them, and create your own patterns from them. But I like how they've laid this out so that you get a really nice non-directional print when you're done. Actually, it's not non-directional. Yeah, I think it is non-directional because I think the stems point in all sorts of directions. Um, Maybe there is a direction because a lot of them do point upwards in one direction. So maybe not 100% non-directional, but kind of close. So I'm gonna start off with some mats and layers. Now, the inks that I chose, I just actually happen to have a Spellbinders cardstock that matches really well. I think it's called Partly Cloudy, and so I started with that. And I've already fully assembled the scarecrow from the small die of the month. But don't worry, I'll show you how to assemble that on my next card. I actually, I think I've mentioned this before. Usually my pop-up card is the first card that I make. And so if there's anything that requires assembly, I will often show the assembly in my pop-up card when I'm making that one, and then I'll just use the extras on the rest of the cards. And so that's why you'll see things happen a little bit out of order. But I'm going to just create a little bit of mats and layers here just to frame the scarecrow. And this is gonna be like the easiest interactive card ever. I'm gonna just put the little pumpkin head of the scarecrow on an action wobbler. I thought it would be fun because he's got such a big head. He kind of looks like a bobblehead to me. So that was the first thing that I thought to do was to put him on a wobbler and have his head wobble back and forth. So I want to make sure though that I do have space for my sentiment. So from the clear stamp of the month, I stamped out Autumn Wishes, and I'm not too sure why I didn't think about it because I also do get the coordinating dies that go with the stamp of the month. It's an option. You can get the stamp of the month with the dies or without, but they do come with a sentiment banner die. And I didn't think about that when I cut out the Autumn Wishes. I was actually more keen to see if the banner die that is part of the large die club, if that would work. And it does. I'm not sure if that's coincidence, but I'm sure it's actually planned that way because Spellbinders is very thoughtful when they create the club kits. They often mix and match and combine with each other very well. So if you were curious, the double fishtail ended sentiment banner from the large die of the month does actually fit the sentiments in the clear stamp of the month. Now, the die that comes in the clear stamp of the month, if you do get the coordinating dies, it doesn't have the fishtail ends. It's just a plain rectangle. So I really love the fact that they've made it so that both dies will work, and it gives you kind of back and forth options. So with the large die of the month, there's a sentiment debossing plate, and that will fit into the die that's from the clear stamp of the month. And so you can choose. You can choose whether you want to have the fishtail banners or not, and you've got some options design wise. And then if you do get the whole kit and caboodle is what I always think of it as. But if you get the caboodle club, then you will also have the kind of the reverse sentiment where instead of the fishtail getting cut inwards, there's like little arrows outwards. So lots of different options for sentiment banners with this month's clubs. Okay, so onto my last card. This is going to be my pop-up card. And as promised, here's where I assemble the scarecrow. There are so many little fun details with this one. it was actually it's so funny because when I was looking to put this together, I actually thought for a moment that this was the large die of the month because there's so much in this one. I'm gonna start with the overalls on the scarecrow. There's a shirt that you can layer underneath. And what I really love this. I know it's totally like not, I guess, critical, but Spellbinders did include this die cut that you can layer the black behind the jack-o'-lantern face. I love that because in the past, what I always just do is like glue a bit of scrap cardstock behind there. But I feel like having the die, it gives you first off an idea for how to assemble it, and second, you know you have a piece that's cut just right that it's going to back all of those openings and not have excess that is accidentally visible beyond the pumpkin head. So I think it's a nice little touch to include. It's really nice that they did that. And then there's one die that it's so funny when I looked at it, I thought it was like chicken feet. And I was thinking, I don't see a chicken die here. So why do I see so many feet? And then I thought, oh, is it maybe chicken footprints that you add? Well, it's actually the straw stuffing for for the hands and feet of your scarecrow. So that's what that is. And they're all on a single die. You get all four of them with one die cut. Then we've got a crow. He does have layers for his eyes, but I'm skipping the die cuts for that. I'm just gonna draw those details in. And then I assembled the wooden post that has the sentiment "Hello Pumpkin." And for the outside of my card, I'm going to start with the 3D embossing folder, which I inked up on one side and then ran that through so that you get that shadow effect and it gives much more definition so that you can really see that design. Here's that debossing plate that I mentioned from the large die club, and it reads many thanks, which if you've ever used debossing plates, those can generally be kind of hard to read. And that's why I went in with a white gel pen to kind of draw in right over those deboss lines, but I didn't really like how that looked. So in that final card, you may notice that it didn't look like this when I showed it at the beginning. What I ended up doing off camera was debossing another one and just gluing it on top. So that's it for the outside. I like to keep the outside of my pop-up cards really simple, and that way I can really spend my time on the inside of the card. So I'm going to show a really basic pop-up mechanism that once you know how to do this, you can create loads of different looks. And it's really great for scene building, which is what I'm going to do on the inside of my card today. So I start off with a panel that I glued to the top portion, just some blue cardstock that's going to be the sky. I inked it with a little bit more blue just to give some variation in the sky as if there's, a little bit of a cloudy day going. And I'll add some more cloud die cuts to it because we get a cloud die in the large die of the month. But let me show you the pop-up mechanism. So I'm going to describe generally how you would design this. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, how tall is this landscape piece? Well, I'm going to score my first line so that it's shorter than that panel. That's going to be the height. Then my next score line, I'm going going to aim for something that's whatever distance away from the back of the card that I want to have that first landscape piece be. And then I just repeat those two distances so that at the end of the day, you're going to create this box almost. And you're going to cut two of them. The exact width doesn't matter. I happen to cut them at 1 inch wide. Then fold everything as a mountain fold, and there's that box. So we'll have two of them like this, and they're gonna be what I attach that landscape piece to. As I'm building my scene, I'm thinking about, okay, I've got the background of the sky. This will be how I attach a midground to my scene. And when I attach this pop-up mechanism, what I'm looking to do is that very first section that I scored, I'm going to glue just that section down to my clouds, to the back of my card here. And that is going to go right up, but not cross over or into the score line of the card. Because if you cross over your score line, it's going to make it harder for this card to fold down nice and flat. So just aim to really get that so that it's just right up next to the score line. And you want to do the same with the second one as well. And I'm just going to aim for an equal distance, but really you're not going to see too much of the pop-up mechanism. To be honest, if you wanted, you could actually make the pop-up mechanism in a different colored cardstock. There is going to be a little bit of it showing, not a lot, but a little. If that bothers you and you don't want the white to show, you could definitely do this out of maybe some of the sky color, or if you prefer, maybe some of the green color. Now I'm going to put glue on the far opposite end, just that small glue tab. And this is going to be, if we numbered the sections, this is section number 4. And I only want to put glue on this fourth section here. That's what's going to attach this to the bottom half of my card base. So I'll do this whole thing over again, but the pop-up mechanism basically follows this pattern. You have section number 1 is the height of your box here. Section number 2 is the distance away from the back. And then you want to travel that same height down and then travel the same distance in towards the back again. And so sections 1 and 3 are going to be the same length, and sections 2 and 4 will be the same length. And I put glue on section 3, and that's where I glued my landscape piece to. Again, every time I glue something down, I fold the card closed so that it's going to just attach where it needs to attach while ensuring that the card is going to fold nice and flat and nice and evenly. Because what I've learned when I've done this in the past, where I try to glue it in its sort of pop-up, orientation where it's standing upright, sometimes I'll glue it and it seems straight, but then when I go to close, it doesn't really close down as flat as I'd like. So if you're always folding your card closed when you bring, the card to kind of meet up with the glue, it's always going to get glued in the right spot. For every scene layer that I build, I'm gonna attach whatever is going to get sort of shown on that layer first before completing the scene that goes in front of it. And you can keep going with this, as far as you'd like. It's kind of nice for scene cards this way, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. We're gonna add another scene in front of this. But first, I'm gonna put my scarecrow. Now, okay, so here's the thing, because I made a little mistake here. Whenever you attach something to your card, be sure to close your card and really make sure that that it all stays inside your card. You'll see in a moment, I'm gonna have to take that scarecrow off, but it's fixable. I just want to give you a heads up now to learn from my mistake. But here we go again with the pop-up mechanism. So I brought my landscape piece on to see how tall that is, and I want that first score line to be below it because we don't want this pop-up mechanism to be visible above our landscape piece. The next score line is the distance away from the scene behind it, and then we repeat those two lengths. So I'm going to do the exact same lengths as before. And really, that's all it is. So you can really customize this. If you want a lot of distance between each layer of your scenes, you could do that. If you want them to be equal, you can do that. If you want them to be a little close together, you can do that. It's totally up to you. The only thing that I was thinking of as I was kind of winging this is that see how my like I don't have a lot going on below the scarecrow. So I don't actually want my foreground scene, which is what I'm going to attach now. I don't want this to be too far away from my scarecrow layer because then you're gonna see more of the pop-up mechanism and more of the bottom portion of that landscape. So I think I only scored this so that in terms of that the distance away, about I think it was like maybe half an inch or so away, not very far. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm only going to glue section one of my pop-up mechanism to the landscape piece because now that we have that landscape piece, it's kind of serving like the cloud layer behind it. And that's why you can continue to kind of extend this as far as you want and continue to add scenes and add pop-up mechanisms. Now, then you fold your pop-up mechanism directly in half and only put glue on section number 4. That last section is a glue tab. And when you fold this in half, all you need to do is then just close your card right on top of it. And then it's going to naturally adhere or glue down where it needs to in order for your card to still close flat. Now, it's around this time that I realized the scarecrow's hat was popping out from from beyond the card panel. But here's how the pop-up mechanism looks from the side. So you can see that scarecrow, my mid-ground layer with the scarecrow. It's a little bit further away from the backmost panel. And then my foreground layer is a little bit closer. So you can design this to be however you'd like. You can have it further, you can have it closer. That's totally up to you. And like I said, a little bit of the white is showing on the top. So if you wanted, you could have done the pop-up mechanisms in green, for example. And that way it kind of looks, if anyone's looking, it sort of blends in a little bit better with those grassy landscapes. Now, speaking of those grassy landscapes, I actually cut those nice curves from border dies that are in the large die of the month, which itself is huge and has a lot of dies to create a really fun scene. I'm going to craft with the large die again because I haven't even used the real focal point of the large die. I've just used some of the extra elements that I feel are really, really versatile for creating scenes, like these nice sort of hilly borders. So I did tear my scarecrow off and reattached him. He's attached to some heavyweight acetate. It's actually really plastic packaging. Um, and part of that is so that, along with this sign as well, that there's something nice and sturdy, nice and stable to attach these to because it's just one layer of cardstock, and so I was worried that, if you accidentally kind of brushed against it or something, it could easily tear. But if it's actually adhered or attached to something nice and sturdy, like some thick acetate or thick plastic, then that's going to help it stay a little bit more firmly attached. So even if it accidentally gets, brushed against, it's not going to tear quite as easily. The clouds here, there's only the one cloud die, but that's why I kind of like running the clouds off the edge, and then that way it doesn't look so obvious that they are identical. But you could probably turn them, around, turn them upside down if you wanted even more variation. And then I'm just going to start to decorate the rest. So in the small die of the month, there's a little pumpkin, and I've die cut that out of various different shades of orange. And there's a really cool die cut that gives you the little pumpkin stem with some curly vines and a leaf attached to it. And then there's separate die will cut out some additional leaves that you can use. And so you've got three different leaves in that die, and it's really fun to kind of collage these together, mix them up a little bit. I've also in that same small dive, the small dive of the month just has a lot. I mean, I didn't use quite everything, but most everything. Because there's also this little sunflower that I'll add later. There's also a cute little apple you can add. There's, oh, I didn't even talk about it. So for your scarecrow, there's actually the pumpkin face, but there's also the face of like a little boy, and he's got a separate dye for his little scruffy hair, and he's really cute. I mean, he's not like a realistic little boy. It's very very much so like a doll kind of look. And there's one dye that it took me forever to figure out what it was, but it's actually his little rosy cheeks. So I need to put him together because I think he'll be kind of cute as well. So if you didn't want the jack-o'-lantern, you could have like a little stuffed doll that's a little boy, which is kind of cute. And then with the crow, there's also that as an option, but there's also a bat. So really cool. A really fun assortment of fall themed items in the small die of the month. And I am what I'm gonna do. I mentioned earlier for the crow, I kind of skipped the dies, the layered dies for the eyes. You have them in there. I'm just not gonna use them because they're so small. They're kind of fiddly to work with. So what I did was I just used a white gel pen, and you can see the dies, layering dies from Spellbinders always have like a deboss line that show you, where and how to line things up. And so I just colored that in with a white gel pen, and then I'm giving it some time to dry as I place some additional little details here and there. And then I'm gonna go back in with my black glaze pen, and I'm gonna draw in the black dot of the eye. So I find that a lot easier than assembling the little die cuts. But if you wanted, you do have the die cuts that you can use for that. And what I'm gonna do when I attach this little bird here is kind of the same thing, because I want him standing on I was kind of debating actually between standing him on the scarecrow, with the scarecrow, or putting him on the sign. And ultimately I ended up deciding to put him in the foreground on the sign. And so he's not going to really be attached to much because he's mostly going to be in midair. But that's why I needed to pull out some more of that strong acetate. And so all I'm gonna do is just add another bit of acetate. You could actually take this clear down to the bottom behind the landscape piece. Thinking back now, I think I would have opted to do that instead, because then that would even further stabilize the that sentiment, the hello pumpkin sentiment. So if you're gonna do this, I would recommend cutting a piece of acetate that's actually long enough to go all the way behind and attach to the landscape below. But this gives me a place to actually attach something to actually attach my bird to, the crow to. And so I'm just gonna position him so he looks like he's standing on the sign. And I learned my lesson, made sure that he's actually gonna fit so that when the card is closed, you're not gonna see any portion of him sticking out. You do want to be careful though. Don't put any adhesive where behind him that might actually attach to your card when it's closed. If you do get a little bit of adhesive, especially dry adhesive, just brush on some anti-static powder so that it's not sticky anymore. Okay, so here's a final look at all of the cards I made today and a close-up look at them as well. So my flat card features some alcohol marker coloring with some pan pastels for the background, and this is the clear stamp of the month. For my layered card, I actually made three colorway versions of essentially the same layout card that feature the glimmer of the month. So I foiled the word thanks, die cut it with the coordinating die, and then foiled the accompanying sentiment in rose gold to match the treasured collection in rose gold, in regular plain gold, and as well in silver. And those are the three um current treasured collections. Hopefully there will be more because I love this variety of specialty card. I think it's really cool, and having that mix is really lovely. I feel like this can be like a really special like set to give away, like a really nice like fancy thank you card set. So I'm gonna make a couple more because I feel like three is too few to have as a gift set. So I'm gonna make at least five, maybe six. This is my interactive card, which is an action wobbler featuring the stencil of the month as the background, the small die of the month for the scarecrow, and the clear stamp of the month for the sentiment. And then last but not least is my pop-up card, which features the 3D embossing folder on the outside. The large die of the month is where that deboss sentiment comes in. And on the inside, I've got again another scarecrow from the small die of the month. A lot of the scene is from the small die of the month, but the actual landscape is from the large die of the month. So that hilly border of the grass is from both of those are from the large die, and the clouds are also from the large die of the month. Thanks for checking out my video today. Links to everything will be in the description box below if you're interested to see them in more detail. And until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.